Welcome everyone. My name's Matthew Tate and welcome to how to handle your emotional negative triggers and more importantly, find balance. Welcome along. I'm so excited that you guys have come along today. And what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to run our own mind and our own body. That's the whole point of it. Now, right now here in Victoria, Australia, we are in lockdown and we've been 1 week, I think, tomorrow, and we are due to probably go for one more week at least. And I think we all knew that, didn't we? And so with this lockdown, it can be incredibly triggering. And so I thought I've got to start putting together some online events to help people first and foremost to manage their emotional state. So you see, the problem is when we get triggered and we go firing off anger, sadness, guilt, all sorts of things, that's when we start drinking too much. That's when we've got nowhere to put our energy because we can't go anywhere. You can't even go out. Well, you can go out for a run, but it's really hard. And so my goal was small emotional triggers up to big ones. Obviously, the bigger ones might have some deeper things that need sorting, but those little silly ones that we just can't let go of, all the way through to the big ones, if it's a trigger and it sets you off and you get fired up and it's not serving you, that's what today is all about. It's all about finding another way. So I'll share with you a particular method to help you get back in control of your system, be proud of how you show up in the world, and be able to get a better outcome for yourself and also possibly for the people around you. So sounds good, doesn't it? So I'll take you through a little presentation which takes you on that journey and which will then give you this particular skill. A reason why I did this, I used to have these triggers. I still do. I'm a human being. Everyone has triggers where something triggers off an emotion. But the question is, if something's happening again and again, and you're finding yourself triggered, and it's not serving you well, you're getting bad results, well, that's what we want to solve. Probably the simple story I might lead with is a story about myself. Now, this particular skill I'll share with you today, which is in the presentation, I'll show you the slides in a moment. I started out with nail biting, which wasn't really a trigger, it was more a bad habit. And I have not bitten my nails since I did this particular trigger technique, neurologically changed what fires off in my mind. So that was the first experience I had with this particular skill, and you'll get to see it very soon. But then I did some research on it, and I realized it's far, far deeper than just good old nail biting, which is how it can quite often be presented when you start to Google these particular words. And I realized we can actually fire off a better feeling. If we're already firing off a negative feeling, you've already got the mechanism. We just attach a different picture to it and lift up your state. The second situation that comes to mind as to how I've used this particular skill today was in my house. A few years ago, we had a builder come through, and the builder had a great experience actually with them in a variety of ways, but there was a little bit of argy-bargy at the end, a little bit of, maybe a bit of disrespect that came my way as that was pointed back towards me when I queried a bill. And my mind ruminated over this. I could not let it go. And it was so frustrating because I wanted to enjoy my house. A good job was done, but I couldn't handle this disrespect. And so I had to do something about this. I had to change this picture. I didn't want to let them off the hook, so to speak, but I didn't want to be sent into my own emotional stuff and a whole volley of thoughts ruminating off that. It just wasn't serving me. And so this example, what I did is I created an ideal self who has handled this situation better. And I asked myself a question: is it okay to get rid of this negative thought? And my unconscious mind, if you're listening to yourself, my mind said no. So I had to ask the question, what do you need, mind? What do you need, brain, to let this go? Well, I need to know next time this happens that you've got a plan that this doesn't happen again. That there were things you know about that you could have done differently yourself, the things that you control, because I can't control someone else, but I can control me. And I could have asked some better questions when that feeling came up during that interaction. I could have asked a lot of questions just to make it really clear what's my stuff and what's your stuff in that interaction with the builder. And the argy-bargy may have been significantly less. And so what I did is I put that into the picture that my ideal self had solved that problem, had interacted with it much earlier, because the thought, it wasn't like this was an unknown. I knew this was coming and I didn't do anything about it. And I needed to be more proactive, be more of an adult, instead of just being quiet and letting the things stew in the background where the clarity was starting to get murky. And so I just created this picture of myself that has it sorted. And this new identity is the power of what I'll take you through today. And so what I want you guys to think about, as I'll just explain what happened, I fired off this new technique. And every time I walk into these rooms and see the items that were built, I'm neutral. I'm okay. I'm happy with my bathroom. I love my bathroom. I love my, the different things that were built around the house. Fantastic. And it's not necessarily letting someone off the hook for their bad behavior, but what it is, it's just neutralizing it inside myself, because that interaction's over. Don't get me wrong. Good, high emotions can be really, really useful and get things moving. But for me, that was the importance of, I just wanted to enjoy what was built. I didn't want to have this negative image coming up in my mind, producing negative feelings. And so in the little presentation, I'll ask that question. I've structured it into the PowerPoint. Where are you triggered in your life? And might be watching the news right now. And one tip might be to turn it off because it's not useful. So you're getting a bit of a sense that we've all got triggers. I had, my nail biting was a trigger. It would obviously, maybe I'd get nervous about something and maybe I'd not bite my nails, but that was more a long-term habit, which I wanted gone because I wanted to be a lot more professional. The second one there with the builder, I just wanted to enjoy the bathroom and not think about it. Just walk in there and brush my teeth. I didn't want to have this mad as hell feeling coming across my body. But of course, some of these situations happening right now are serious and got good reason to be triggered, because perhaps your livelihood's been taken away. That's a different kettle of fish. I'm talking about these triggers that are inside of us that are coming out. And I like to have ways to cope. Now, even if you are fully proactive with your mental health and you've got yourself a counselor, you've got yourself a psychologist, a psychiatrist, you've gone and seen an NLP practitioner, which is what I am, or you've gone to see a self-directed healing practitioner, which is what I am as well. You've gone to a hypnotherapist, you've gone to all these different people. That's great, but you've still got a week or two between your visits, even if you're fully, engaged. And you've got to survive life. We want to show up differently and not be triggered by those negative things. So that is what today is all about, is triggering off a better image of a better version of you, a version of you, your ideal self, that has solved this problem. And what it does when you fire off this better feeling, I'll take you through it in a moment, is your unconscious mind will do whatever it takes to fulfill your identity. Let that sink in. Because if you find yourself self-sabotaging about anything, it's because you're doing something that does not fulfill the identity your brain has created. So if you can start to tweak the identity, it's like the master and commander, your identity. And if you can change that identity one little picture at a time, your unconscious mind will just automatically start to make it happen. So this is why it's powerful, and we'll create a generalization that can go across lots of different areas of your life and fire off this image. And what I do with my particular ideal self-image is I add in, like first it was the nail biting. I created this confident, dude that can handle everything. He's got it all sorted. He's got all the answers, right? Even if you don't, but there's this future version of you that does. And it tricks your unconscious mind when you build enough in there to move forward towards it. So that's what we're doing. We're going to start to look and focus on how you solve that problem. Sounds good, doesn't it? Excellent. So we'll go through the presentation and I'll get a bit of interaction with you all as we go through it. Does that sound good? Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. This is awesome. I'm really excited. Let me jump into the presentation. And let me just get back to the start. Well, welcome everyone to Handling Emotional Triggers and Finding Balance. My name is Matthew Tate, and we can all be on top of that mountain as we discover our ideal self who handles all these triggers, absolutely no dramas. My name's Matthew Tate. I'll be your trainer today, taking you through this little activity. It's fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to identify some traits of your ideal self that will handle any of your emotional triggers, as I said in the intro. So what we're going to be doing today, I'll take you through an introduction of myself and an introduction as to what I do. And then I'll take you into a description of trigger problems and solutions. And then we'll do an activity with a group session and I'll flick in and out of the presentation as we go through and then do a wrap up. But you'll build your own positive trigger. Little introduction of myself. My name is Matthew Tate and I help people with anxiety. Stress and overwhelm is all part of that. And I do this via one-on-one coaching. I do this via coaching programs and online courses, all of which I can take you through if we chat in the future. So why did I create Fork in the Road Coaching, or Fork in the Road, which is the name of my coaching practice? And that's because anxiety, stress, and overwhelm was part of my story too. So I understand that feeling of being lost. Oops. So a little housekeeping before we begin. Today is completely complimentary and I have nothing to sell today, so there's no dollar signs anywhere. So just please relax and have fun. My goal is to meet new people, have fun, and to meet those people that want some more out of life. That's effectively what I'm doing. Introducing myself to the community, both here in Geelong and online. Anyone who wants to reach out and discuss and chat with me about what coaching is all about, but it's more about learning about yourself. So just have fun. It's a fun session. I'm doing these free sessions because I want to help the community and introduce myself to everyone. So the only opportunity I provide today is for anyone who puts a comment in the chat box or clicks on a link, which I'll provide in the at the bottom of this video, is for those people who are interested, is the one-on-one session I call a roadmap session. And that's for anyone who's wanting to get moving, who is stuck and not moving forward in their life. And this roadmap session is complimentary, right? So it's only for those who click in the chat box today or click on the links I provide that I'll have that chat with you. And then I'll reach out to you and we can have a chat if you want to do that roadmap session. All you have to do is just type "let's chat" and I'll reach out to you after the session. Now that's for only those people that are wanting to sort of act now, get themselves moving. And if you're not there yet, that's totally cool. You can come to as many events as you like, which I'll be running these on a regular basis. And I'll run this one again in the future as well. So this roadmap session is one-on-one and it's just like a Google Map search. So we look at your starting point, your destination, and your directions to get there. So if you think about your phone and you need to get somewhere on your phone, what do? It knows where you live because, well, Big Brother's watching. But you have to type in a very specific direction. If you want to go to a particular cafe, you have to put in that cafe and click on that precise location. Once you have a precise location, we can then figure out that magical blue line that gets you there from A, your current position, and B, where you want to go. So I work with people in those three areas. Normally the starting point is people don't quite understand where they are at now. And that's what I help them with. I help them overcome the anxiety, the overwhelm, the things that are stuck inside them that they need to just resolve and get moving so they can move on. The boat anchors. Point B is where they want to go. They don't understand where they want to go. That's what I help them with as well. And that is your values, your direction, your purpose. That's that cafe that you're trying to get to, that specific location. And then the third part is, point A, point B. What's the gap in between? And that gap in between is your directions to get there. So that's what is that roadmap session's all about. We'll discuss that. It's 45 minutes to an hour. Those who are interested in that, you can click on that link and just say, let's chat, and I'll reach out to you, and I'll bring this up at the end of the session as well. So if we're all cool with that, that's the only thing I offer. I actually offer complimentary stuff. So that's the deal today. Now on to our little presentation. Initially, I wanted to handle my own triggers. As you see there, I've got my own little triggers there, my little gun there. And with my triggers, the first trigger was, well, I had a trigger of biting my nails. That was the first story I shared. The second story was the trigger of walking into a particular room in the house, like a bathroom, and being triggered by that last argument with a builder, which just wasn't serving me. I didn't want it anymore. It doesn't matter who was right or wrong. It's just let it go so I can enjoy the bathroom. And I just wanted to neutralize it. And that's what I did. And so think about your own triggers and what trigger you'd like to shift today and what the antidote to that might be as we move forward through the presentation. And so what is a trigger, I hear you ask? Well, the gun analogy is you pull the trigger and a bullet explodes out of the barrel. And when we get that bullet that explodes out of the barrel, it moves towards a target and with a destructive force, causing untold damage. So examples of emotional triggers, it could be rejection, it could be betrayal, it could be unjust treatment, it could be challenged beliefs, loss of control, disapproval of yourself or others might come from all of that. And then from that trigger, the thing that's triggered you off, you might be angry, mad as hell. You might have sadness. You might have helplessness. You might have shame, guilt, and then from all of that, addiction can come. So these aren't really going to serve you. Sometimes anger does serve you if you've got to protect your loved ones in a dangerous situation. But I reckon 95% of the time, it's just not a useful emotion. And so it's not going to serve us for getting a better, smarter outcome in your life. And so that is what we're talking about today, is having better outcomes, showing up differently. And so you don't look like that lady there who is just not happy. And you're not going to get a good result from that lady, I don't think. So an example might be having aggressive emails at work. This was another one I created a Swish pattern on. I would become a little bit too emotional about words on a screen, letters on a screen that were potentially disrespectful, but they're just letters on a screen. What does that say about what was inside of me if you get the Incredible Hulk coming out of you from an aggressive email? So the resulting emotion might be anger. Well, why are we angry? Well, maybe it's a lack of respect. Maybe it's unjust treatment, or maybe it's a loss of control, because we all know there's things like, politics in the office. And so if we respond with anger, damage is done, just like pulling that trigger. We want to avoid that damage. We want to avoid the damage and find a better place or a better path for a better outcome and better actions. We want to be proud of ourselves, because sometimes someone can have done wrong by you, but actually you end up looking like the Fruit Loop. I know I have, because you lash back out at them and then you are looking a bit weird. But if you hold your stuff together, keep your brain online instead of flipping your lid, losing the power of your thinking brain, and you go straight to the emotional brain, you lose the brownie points. And so now let's put in the chat box. I'll stop sharing for a moment. Put in the chat box a situation where you are not happy with your emotional response. What's an example for you, or a situation, what emotion fires off? So if I just stop sharing for a moment, what would be an example for you? So you can put in the chat box, or you can put in the comments section emotions that come out of you. And these emotions are coming from a trigger of some kind. And so if you can think about a trigger that comes up on a regular basis, maybe it's a 7 or an 8 or a 9 out of 10, and you just get mad as hell, or you send into extreme sadness that's just over the top and it stops you from living your life. Have a think about that as I go on with this presentation, because we want to create a picture of that, and then we are going to override it with a better picture. And we'll ask your mind, are you okay to let this go? And you can answer that question, no, I'm not. If it does answer your mind, you think, no, I'm not happy to let that go. It serves me in some way. We need to find out what that is. And then your mind will be happy to create this little pattern. So we'll keep going with the share screen. So that example that you've got, and we'll do this in the live session. This is a recording before the live session, but we'll do this in the live session and you will understand what is triggering off your negative emotions. So today I'll share with you a method of tricking your mind into firing off a positive image, firing off a positive feeling or emotion. What is this method called, I hear you ask? The Swish pattern. This is a method that comes from the field of NLP. And quite literally, what we're going to do is we are going to literally swish an image in your mind's eye across the top of the existing trigger image. And that is going to neurologically make you move towards this future ideal self. Sounds good, doesn't it? So let's have a play with it. Let's have some fun as we work through this swish pattern. So this was developed by Richard Bandler, published in his book in 1985, Using Your Brain for a Change, in chapter 9. And I've been very fortunate as I was preparing for this and did deeper research on the swish pattern, there's a guy by the name of Steve Andreas who had reviewed all of these different swish patterns that are available online. And he was telling us how everyone's doing it wrong compared with Richard Bandler. He said it was like taking a supercharged Ferrari and changing it for a billy cart, which is just, a box on 4 wheels hurtling down a hill. And you're just taking all the power out of it by not using the unconscious processes that go into this. So Richard Bandler's technique, what we will do is create 2 pictures. Picture 1 will be the current negative emotion, and we'll put in whatever is in your image that is just before you feel that feeling, that trigger point. And I'll explain what my trigger point is, and we'll get you to put in the chat box what your trigger points might be to help you understand what happens just before you have that feeling. So you can see that thing again, because it's going to come up again. The image will come up again because you see something, an image comes up in your mind, and your body goes into a feeling. And when you do that, we can then attach a better picture to that automatic thing that's happening. So picture 1 is your current negative emotion, and we won't spend too much time in that because you already will have one pretty quickly. And picture 2 is an image of yourself having solved the problem. Now, the power of doing it this way is your identity starts to attach to this image of yourself having solved the problem. And with that, you've also got the other elements in the mind where you've asked it, are you okay to let this go? That's a really important question we forget. We just try and achieve a goal without really checking out inside what is going on. So before we do Bandler's swish pattern, let's get to know your mind a little bit better. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a little tool that you can use in the future in a variety of ways, but we'll just start with your swish pattern and we'll start with the reality. So if you have something that's real in your life, we're going to find out where you store pictures in your personal space. This is the first part of our little activity. This is my own bit of an add-on, and that comes from a book written by Steve Andreas called Transforming Yourself. And in that book, he talks about where do you store the reality in your mind. And so what we will do is we're going to get you to close your eyes, not now, but in a moment, and think of something that's real. Example, my car is red. I am a mother. I live in a city, a suburb, wherever it is. And what we're going to do is notice when we close our eyes, and I'll bring this slide back in a moment, but I'll look at the reality position, where it is in your personal space, and it might be just in front of you in your mind's eye. When you close your eyes, you're going to have a picture in your mind because your mind thinks very much in pictures as well as feelings and sounds and thoughts. But we'll put them all into a picture. So we're going to look at where the picture is in space in front of you, what size is it, and what's the color, if it's vivid or black and white. And then we'll open our eyes and we'll put in the chat box what that looks like. So I'll stop sharing for a moment and let's do that right now. So I want you to sit back and relax in your chair and let's test out reality. So let's start with, before we close our eyes, just put on the chat box, what are you going to just play with as an image as to what's real in your life? Is it going to be the color of your car? Is it going to be, the color of your house? Is it going to be the street where you live? There'll be some image that you'll be able to put in your mind and we'll be able to test where you store reality in your mind. And everyone will be slightly different. So I want you to think about that before we start. So just put in the chat box what you're going to test as a real thing in your mind. Is it going to be just the color of your car? Just put that in the chat box. It's a good place to start. Everyone's generally got a car. Like I've got a white Jeep, for example. All right, so I've got a white Jeep and I can test where that lives in my mind. So just put in the chat box what you're going to test out. Excellent. So we've got cars, we've got houses, color of a favorite dress, a favorite jacket color, something that's real and your mind knows it's real. Cool. Now what we're going to do, we're going to close our eyes like this. I'll leave mine open, but you close your eyes and now bring up that picture in your mind's eye. And I want you to tell me, where does it live in the space in front of you? This picture, this real picture, is part of reality. This picture is an image of your car, let's say. And it might be front and center. Some people, it could be to the left, to the right. Wherever you store reality, I want you to remember that. So the location, where is it? Left, right, center? How far away is it from your face? So is it right here? This is real. This is not real. So is this real here? Or is it just out here? Maybe it's like a few feet, or maybe a meter away. Whatever it is, know what that distance is. It might be arm's length. It might be here. You decide how far that is. And when you've got that, while the eyes still closed, you've got the distance. How big is the picture? Is it like a movie screen? Or is it like a small LCD, monitor? What's the size of this picture? So take note of the size of the picture of this thing that's real in your life and where it is. So you've got the location, how far it is from you, and the size of the picture. And the last element in there is it color, a vivid color, or is it black and white? Like, what is it to you? And whatever you answer is correct, because that's how you have stored it in your mind, in your space, in your personal space. Excellent. So now you've got your personal reality check. You can open your eyes now. What I want you to do, I invite you to put into the chat box, what did you see? How far was it? Was it arm's length? Just put in the chat box how far it was. And you might even want to get a pen and paper and write down where your reality picture lives, because we can play with that, neurologically connect your identity to it later on. So you've got your position, it's out here somewhere. You've got the distance, you've got the location, you've got the size of the screen, and you've got the black and white versus color. So just put in the chat box, what feature did you see? Because you only need 1 or 2 features, and it can really start to feel in the body when you start playing with this. So this is part of your reality strategy. And of course, you could test this across a variety of things. Your favorite dress, I am a husband, I am a wife, I am a mother, all sorts of images that come up in your mind. But the car's a nice and simple one. Like you see the car all the time. So you've got your reality picture. Fantastic. Remember those details for later. Now I'll go back to the presentation. Well done, everyone. That's awesome. So you've now got a position, got a few features as to where your reality picture lives in space in front of you. Great job. Now we are ready to work through the Bandler Swish pattern. So Bandler's technique, we create the 2 images in your mind. Picture 1 is the negative emotional trigger. And one of the important features of this is we have to look through our own eyes at that image as if we're experiencing it. Now, if it's a bad thing, you can always make that picture a bit smaller if you're having bad feelings in the body. But if you can feel them coming up and it's okay and you can handle it, then just leave it there for a moment, and then we'll white out the whiteboard in just a moment so you don't have to experience it. So your current negative emotional trigger, looking through your own eyes at this image, through your own eyes, as if it were happening to you. So picture 1, I want you to see what happens at the point of being triggered. See it, feel it, hear it. But really importantly, you'll notice that for me, I walked into the bathroom. And then I would see, I'll just stop sharing for a moment. And then I would see the bathroom. And I would see maybe a shelf that was put in, let's say, for example. And that shelf would trigger off an image of the person who I had the argument with, which then would send myself into a bit of a state, which wasn't useful. It wasn't useful at all. And so what I decided to do is like, okay, how can I handle this better? And I thought, well, what's my ideal self? I'll deal with that later, but I need to have the image as to what happens first. So a negative image. All right. So I've got the pictures of me walking into the bathroom, and I see the shelf, and then an image of him pops up. All right. So that's my picture. I created that picture in my mind's eye. It's the trigger point. So that's the picture, and it sits there. So we'll bring that picture back in a moment, but I want you to first decide what your picture is and what trigger you're looking to overcome. So maybe put in the chat box, what would be an example of a trigger you would like to overcome? And let's just create that image in your mind's eye. And if you've already got one, just say, got it. I've got mine already, and just say, I've got it. And just so I get some feedback that you've got it in the chat box. Great job. Awesome. So you've got your chat box, you've got your negative trigger image. You know what happens just before you see something, or you hear something, or you feel something just before it happens, or you say something in your head and then boom. So something outside of you has triggered it, and then the emotional response comes from inside. And we're gonna, because those things outside of you might still happen, but you won't be triggered anymore. That's the goal today. Right, so back to the presentation, and everyone's got an image already in their mind's eye, and we'll roll with that. And so we have our current negative emotional trigger point. And the trigger point, looking through your own eyes. Remember that. It's looking through your own eyes at what happens just before you're triggered. So we've chosen our negative emotional trigger that gets us emotional, perhaps more than seems required. Now I want you to give me a score out of 10. How bad is this thing? Just put in the chat box a score out of 10 as to how much this affects your life. Is it a 3? Is it a 4? Is it a 10? Whatever it is, is perfectly fine. And we'll try and attach a nice image to this image number 2 in just a moment, but let's just get a score out of 10 so we can calibrate and write down your score out of 10. But put those in the chat box and we'll check back in with that later on. Good answers in the chat box. We've got 7s and 6s and 8s and 9s, and we've got some 5s and 3s. That's all great. All right, so we've got in the chat box the number you have chosen, and the higher the number, the better it works in this example. Picture 1. So looking through your own eyes, we've already got this covered. Can you see a picture when your negative trigger occurs, and how do you know it is time to feel triggered and feel bad? So I don't want to labor on this too much, but how do you know? And that's the question we ask to just make sure we've got this negative trigger understood. So we've got it just before it fires off, because that's where the power of the swish pattern is. So my example story was, to help you, was the feeling angry with the negative emails is something that's happened to me in the past, or a negative memory perhaps of an argument where I was feeling disrespected. I just wanted it gone. I didn't want any ruminations happening at all. I just wanted to get on with my life because those people were not in my life anymore. So that is why we're doing this. And so some of these things have a bigger impact than they should have, these negative emotions. And this, just want to make sure we understand why we're doing this. We want this to serve us. Now, anger can serve you if there's an immediate threat. Yes, absolutely. But I reckon in our society, 90% of the time, the anger's just not useful and not serving us, especially if it's around people who you have to continue to be around and work with and live with and that sort of thing. We have to find another way to get a better result. Use our thinking brain, because when we go angry, our thinking brain, this frontal cortex here, it shuts off, it flips off, and we go straight to the second part of the brain, which is the emotional master center. So that's picture 1. You've got that image. We understand why we're doing it. We understand we've got a picture, what happens just before, and how do you know it's time to have that negative trigger. So you've got that sorted. Now let's jump in to picture number 2. And I'll jump out of the presentation shortly and we'll be talking our way through this. But picture number 2 is your ideal self. And this is your ideal self having solved this problem trigger. What is your antidote? Now let's just have a bit of a chat in the chat box and let's look at what is your antidote. It might be empowered, grounded, seeing other people's emotions inside of them. It's not about you, that this is inside them if they're angry. And you are showing up differently. You're not getting angry. Seeing things from the observer position, as if you're watching the whole scene, finding better outcomes. So these are just some words I've put in to help us move forward. I'll just stop sharing for a second. Have a look at what's going on. What's the antidote? So you've got your negative picture. You know what triggers you off. You get mad as hell. You get sad. You get anxious. You get whatever you get. What would be the antidote to that? That we can put into an ideal version of yourself? It's a good question to ask, isn't it? I mean, if you have solved this 100%, this is your ideal self, right? This is like your guru. This is like your levitating being. And like, let's imagine for a moment. Let's put in the chat box, what's some ideas as to the opposite to your negative trigger, to the opposite. And let's just build up a sense of self. Now, for me, to lead the charge on this, my ideal self, I'll start with the nail biting because that's an easy one that we start with in the field of NLP and coaching and mindset training. Nail biting does not display confidence. And so I wanted to fix nail biting, though I do have a little scar there, but that's not from nail biting. We do, maybe I should show you this one, which is a very nice hand. We do have to provide an opposite to the nervous look of nail biting. You know, if you're like this, it's not a good look, right? It's not a good professional look. And if your fingers are all mangled, it's, you know, it says, oh, this person's got a bit of anxiety. And I didn't want that. And so what I did is I created an image of myself. And has anyone seen that show with, what's his name? Don Draper, I think his name is. And it's Mad Men. And he plays the part, I think Don Draper's the character. And he plays the part of this guy, Don, who is the Mad Men character, who is an advertising agent, and he's super confident. Now, in the movie, in the show, he's actually not, but he's just super confident in all of these meetings with these high executives. And he's just relaxed, he's chilled out, he's like sitting back like this. And so I have an image of him with my head plonked on him. And this is my ideal self. Look, I got this sorted. I got it all solved. I got it done. It's all good. I've solved this before. I know how to do it. And I have it all together. Now, this is the beginning image of building in some more qualities into this ideal self who has solved this nail biting problem. He knows he doesn't need to bite his nails because he has a lot of solutions in his kitty bag. What are the solutions you would put in your kitty bag to solve your emotional trigger? So empowered. You've got solutions, you've got problem-solving skills, you know how to argue a point, or you know how to set a nice, effective boundary. And that might require some research to get there, but your ideal self over here has solved it. This is the power of the Swish pattern. If you can create an identity, so put in the chat box, what would be an example of a feature that you can see would solve that negative trigger? Like your ideal selves come along, they're having a look at the situation, you're getting emotional, you say, I don't need to get emotional because I know I've got this handled. Probably another example, if I take you away from the nail biting and towards the builder example. And for me, what I had to build into this story, this ideal self, which I built on top of the nail biting guy, who was, you know, the confident guy that just got it all sorted. I don't need to bite my nails. That guy. And that guy, I built on top of that another element. And that element was of when you feel in the future that there is a drama with the builder and lack of clarity is coming and that they're disappearing off to other jobs and they're doing all that sort of stuff that can happen, that I just sit down with them openly and honestly and say, hey, where are we at? What's going on? Let's have a chat. And actually communicate, not via text, because that's how I communicated, was by text. I should have had the courage to have the phone call, but do it earlier, like way earlier in the piece. And it was this like weird silence that went on for too long. And so I just know there's 100 things I could have done differently in that lead up to that moment where the pressure built. And so my ideal self will just recognize something's a bit off and then think about what's the appropriate way to handle it, where there's no anger yet. There's no drama. It's all good. We just have an open conversation. What's your situation? What's mine? Because what you have to do is you've got to ask your mind before you build this ideal self, is there any resistance to solving this? Is there any resistance in letting this anger go? Because your unconscious mind's trying to look after you. Remember that. And so here's the question for you guys. Is it okay for your mind to let go of this? Spend a moment and really reflect on that. Put in the chat box if anyone got no, I can't let this go yet. Because that is a great, great place to come from. Because if they say, I can't let this go, it begs the next question, what do you need to let this go, to be safe, to let this emotion disappear? And that is where the gold is. That's where your identity, your ideal self will have a different feel and be useful in this Swish pattern. So put in the chat box, what is something that you would need to let go of that picture? Maybe it's, I need What do I need? For me, I needed to know that I had spoken up earlier. If I'd spoken up earlier, the conflict may not have happened. Like, I can control my bit. Now, don't get me wrong. Some builders will shaft you. So don't get me wrong. That will happen at time to time. And that is probably an appropriate time to get mad as hell because you've had the rug pulled from under you. But that wasn't this situation. It was just a slow build up. And so I could do something about it. So in the chat box, when you get triggered, your ideal self, what does it need to have in that picture to have it solved, to let it go, to be okay to let it go? Just think about that for a moment and put in the chat box some ideas. Because once you trip on something your unconscious mind needs to let it go, then the swish becomes so much easier. There's not that resistance. I like to spend a few moments on this because it's super important. Fantastic. Excellent job, guys. I'll go back to sharing my screen. And so you can see yourself from the observer position, like you're floating above yourself, and you're outside of your body, watching yourself handle these situations with ease. And that is what we want to create, is that ideal self that has handled it, that has catered for all the reasons why we held on to the emotion, and allows us to let go of the emotion, because we will make sure next time we've learnt the lessons as to what we could do differently next time. We can do a whole lot of things next time differently. So it's important to ask, is there any resistance? As I said, removing this trigger, and add into your ideal self the ability to handle that resistance, to handle whatever it needed, your mind, and make sure you add that into an image. Right now, I'd love you to be building a picture of your ideal self who has handled this negative situation. And we've already written in the chat box any resistance you had. And what was the antidote to the resistance? How did you keep your mind happy? Anyone got any ideas on exactly what they did? Now that we've had a moment to resonate with that, just put in the chat box where you felt that. Fantastic. Great job, guys. We've got all sorts of great answers coming through. We've got antidotes would be that, well, I'm going to ask better questions. I'm going to know inside myself it's not about me, it's about them. We're going to move ourselves forward regardless, because we know that that person is stuck, the other person that might be triggering us, that other situation. Fantastic answers. So now I want you to close your eyes and see image number 2, your ideal self, who has resolved all this. And notice where it is located in your personal space. Now make sure you're watching yourself from the outside, looking at yourself, handling it beautifully, this situation, where your ideal self has it sorted. So if you've got that picture, I want you to now close your eyes as you're sitting there and bring that picture into the position of reality. Do you remember that picture? The location of reality, where you put maybe your white Jeep car or whatever you've put that position, you had the distance of reality. Put that picture the same distance of reality that you had before. It might have been arm's length. It might have been up near your face, wherever that distance is. And now that you've got that picture in that distance position, it's the same location with the center, left or right, wherever you store reality. And now stretch it out to be the same dimensions, the same size of picture that reality had before. Whatever it was, if it was a cinema or if it was like a flat screen TV, whatever the size of it was, stretch it to the same size as reality, the same distance out as reality. And also, is it the same color, vivid color as reality? Some people have black and white. Some people have it as color. Some people have it as a 3D movie, whatever it is. Just add that extra feature to make sure this picture is the same as reality. Just take a moment to see what you're seeing in this moment, to feel what you're feeling, and hear whatever you would hear. And notice the thoughts that you have when you've got this ideal self who's totally solved that problem. Just spend a moment marinating in that great feeling of, hey, I got this sorted. Notice who you would be without this problem. Notice the ripple effect of this ideal self as your eyes are still closed and you're noticing how it is across many other parts of your life it's going to help. This is an incredible version of yourself. Notice how you don't need to do this old behavior or trigger anymore, as you are a totally different person in that image right now. Great job. Locating in the reality position, locating the reality size of picture, and making sure it's the same vivid color as reality. Great job. Picture 2 is your ideal self, having solved this problem trigger. And let's spend a moment immersed in your ideal self as you watch yourself having solved this trigger, satisfied and pleased with yourself. See what you see, hear what you hear as you look at that image, feel what you feel as you look at that image, and think the thoughts. Spending a moment in that image. And now we've spent a bit of time as you're in that image. Really enjoy that feeling, because we want to lock in this positive image that you've just created in front of you. And so I'm just checking in with everybody. You can open your eyes now. We've now got picture number 2, really good positive image. And I've spent a bit of time with you because I wanted to get this right. Great job, everyone. Now it's time to start swishing. Now, the next part I've put together in a sort of word by word fashion, but the reality is I'll probably pop in and out like this so that I can do the swish with you. And I've done this very, very effectively on myself. I've done it very effectively with my clients, my one-on-one coaching clients, mindset coaching clients, and helping people with anxiety, helping people with overwhelm, and helping people create better positive triggers on their negative things that happen that are not that negative in themselves, but it's the feeling inside them that I'm helping them to recreate. So I'll go back to my presentation. I'll come in and out of this, but now it's time to swish. I'm going to share with you how it comes together. And so we will return to image number 1, the problem image. We'll do this in a moment. We all know what that problem image looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to put image number 2 small and dark in the bottom right-hand corner. And before we do this, I'll take you through and guide you through this verbally with your eyes closed in a moment. But for the moment, just have a look on the screen to see how it looks. You've got picture 1 is in the main screen of your picture. Picture 2, which is your ideal self, we'll put small and dark, and we'll swish over the top of the old image, exploding it, swishing it over the top, the new image. And as we're doing that, at the same time, we'll shrink down the old image like they are taking over each other's space. And the first image, the bad image, the bad habit, will shrink down to the bottom dark and disappear down the bottom. Small and dark to the bottom left, the opposite side. And this analog swapping of it neurologically connects all of these things together. And then image 2 has filled the screen, and we'll make sure it's in the reality position. And I'll take you through this step by step. It'll be the right location, it'll be the right size, and it will feel like reality in color. And then I'll get you to imagine a whiteboard, as in the whiteboard behind me here, and that whiteboard where you clear the screen. And then we'll go through it again. Step 6 is to repeat steps 1 to 5. And so here they are here. So step 1, we've got the problem trigger picture. Step 2, we'll put the ideal self bottom right, and I'll take you through this. Step 3, I'll get you to swish it over the top, and the other one will disappear down the bottom. And step 4, you're going to feel image 2 in the reality position. And then step 5 will go whiteboard. And we'll do that faster and faster. And neurologically, that connection to the old pattern will start to change. So let's go and check that. So we're going to now do it without the whiteboard, without the sharing. And now I'll just do it with you. And so you've got your negative trigger picture, you got your positive picture. Now let's do a swish pattern. I'll take you through it with you very slowly, step by step, and then we'll speed it up and speed it up and speed it up. And you may even say, but I can't even create the picture because you're doing it too fast. That's perfect. That's what we want. So I'm just doing a bit of a pre-frame to let you know what can happen. And then we'll end up with this amazing trigger where if you do it fast enough and often enough, after about 4 or 5 goes, then when you think about that negative picture, the positive one slides straight in neurologically. Some people it's 2 or 3 goes, other people 4 or 5, some people up to 20. I've heard other people around 11. Doesn't matter what it is, but we'll do it faster and faster, and we'll get it through as many times as we can because we're at the hour mark now. So we've got now half an hour or so to play with this. We've built it up now. Let's jump in. All right, so everybody relaxing, sitting in your chair, and close your eyes. I'll get you now to bring up picture number 1, the trigger image. That image that you know very well, that image that you have already inside from when you get triggered. Bring that picture to the front of the screen of your mind with your eyes closed. You've got that picture, just nod your head if everyone's got the picture. Very good. So you got that picture in front of you, and now I want you to bring picture number 2, small and dark, to the bottom right-hand side. So it's over the top of the other one, but bottom right-hand side, you see this little black dot, dark dot. That is your image number 2. And when I say swish, I want you to say swish with me and swish over the top of the old picture, watching the old picture shrink down to the bottom left. Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1, and swish over the top. That new picture is now full, and the old picture has shrunk to a dot to the bottom left-hand corner. And feel that picture fill, the number 2, the ideal self that has this problem solved, filling the screen. Put it into the reality position. It's that distance out from your eyes. It's the size and shape it was before in reality. And it's the same color or black and white, whatever it was before in reality. Make it that vivid color, that real color. And you can bring it a bit closer and notice the feelings. And put it into that reality position. And now whiteboard. So imagine you're wiping out a whiteboard in your mind. Open your eyes if you want for the moment, and then close your eyes. Imagine a whiteboard. And I'll say something weird like, do you smell popcorn? Nope, no popcorn here. And that's just to clear the state. Similar to the last event where we just clear the emotions for a moment. And I ask you, what did you have for breakfast? Doesn't really matter. All that matters is we're now thinking about something else. Okay. Now we're going to do this a lot faster and slowly pick up the pace. Okay, so now let's close our eyes again. We'll go through it again. So it's not that hard, but when you write out the steps, it sounds harder than it actually is. Okay, so picture 1, full screen, the problem state, your trigger. Picture 2, bottom right, dark dot. So my bottom right here, which will look left to you, but that's bottom right to your eyes. And now swish over the top, making the picture number 2 big and bright, and picture number 1 shrinks all the way to the bottom, dark dot, and disappears out to the bottom left. New picture is close in the reality position again. It's the size of reality. It's the shape of reality. It's the distance out in your personal space of reality. It's that vivid color. Spend a moment marinating in those feelings of your ideal self who solved this. I got this. I got it sorted. Good job. And whiteboard. Now imagine a whiteboard in front of you. And imagine a whiteboard Tell me what the fourth letter of the Greek alphabet is. I don't know. Someone does. Resetting the system. Now bring back picture one and we'll start to pick up the pace. Picture one, the old picture of the trigger state. Picture two, bottom right, dark dot. And swish, say the word swish as you go over the top. The other picture disappears down the bottom. The picture two is in the reality position. And whiteboard. Now let's pick up the pace even further. Picture one, the old picture. Picture two, bottom right. Swish over the top. The other one disappears. Reality position, ideal self. Whiteboard. Picture one, fill the screen. Picture two, bottom right. Picture two, now swish, say the word swish, over the top. Whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, bottom right, swish, whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, bottom right, swish over the top, reality position, whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, bottom right, swish over the top, reality, whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, bottom right, swish over the top, whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, bottom right, swish over the top, picture two, ideal self, reality position, and whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, swish, whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, bottom right, swish over the top, ideal self, whiteboard. Picture one, picture two, swish, whiteboard. One, two, swish, whiteboard. One, two, swish, whiteboard. And relax. And relax. How did you go? Were you following along with that swish pattern? And what you're doing is you're joining together the trigger image and joining your ideal self who's got this soul, which makes you feel better inside. Good idea, isn't it? So now let's do a little test and we'll strengthen it some further. So a little bit further. I want you now to think about picture number one. Close your eyes and bring it up into your mind's eye. Is it hard to bring back that trigger image? A little bit difficult? Well, you have to construct it, and that's okay. That's good. That's a bit of a sign that your ideal self is starting to come into your reality position. And so you've got this picture number one. And I want you now to try and swish picture number two, bottom right, manually. Just let's play with this manually and swish over the top. And how do you feel about that negative trigger? And so the score you had before out of 10 for this negative trigger, give it a score now. We'll do a bit of a test. Before, if you had an 8 out of 10, what is it now? So put the first number and now the second number in the chat box down below. What is your negative trigger score right now? Your ideal self has solved all this, remember. And your unconscious mind will go after your ideal self and make it happen. Fantastic. Awesome. So we're seeing numbers going from 8 to 4, some 5s to 3s, some 6s down to 2s. Fantastic shifts. But we're not done yet. We want to see if we can get this to happen automatically. So let's have a go at getting your swish pattern so it just fires off whenever you think of that negative trigger. And then when that happens in your real life, I would love for you to reach out and send me an email and just say, hey, Matt, this weird thing happened. That picture shot over the top and made me feel good when I would normally be mad as hell. So let's keep doing some reinforcement. We've still got a little bit of time left. So we'll keep going and we'll build up this swish pattern inside of you. So we've spent a bit of time like I would in a one-on-one coaching session to get to know your trigger, get to know your ideal self, and to start to build it up and connect it. And now we're just connecting it up using your existing biological hardware you've already got. So let's now jump into another swish. Again, do reinforce and see if we can get those numbers down even further, and see if the trigger, when you think about it, if that swish automatically happens. Fantastic. Some people have even got some automatic swishes happening, which is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm really stoked. Okay, let's jump in. Let's have a crack at the swish pattern again. Are we ready? In the chat box, you're good to go. You ready for the next round? All right, let's do round number 2 of the swish pattern. All right. Picture number 1. You know what that looks like. Fill the screen, closing your eyes, and see picture 1. Picture 2, bottom right. Dark dot. And swish. Say the word swish as you do it. Bring the picture over the top into the reality position. The distance out from your mind's eye. The size that is reality, whatever that screen looks like. Vivid in color, or whatever it was, the reality position. Bring it a little bit closer, play around with the distance, and make the feelings in the body change. And whiteboard. Wipe out the whiteboard. Do you smell popcorn? Is a way of breaking that state. What is the 7th letter of the Greek alphabet? I don't know. Someone does. Fantastic. Great job. Now, let's go back in picture 1. Picture 1, bring it onto the screen in front of you in your mind's eye with your eyes closed. Picture 2, small dot, dark, bottom right-hand corner. And swish over the top. The other picture disappearing down to the left, swishing over the top, bringing that picture to the reality position. This is your ideal self, the great feelings, the amazing feeling of being satisfied with yourself, your ideal self. Hold that position and really marinate in those feelings. And whiteboard. If you want to stay with those feelings, sometimes I sit in there a little bit longer and just, that feels good. Just enjoy it. Okay, back to the whiteboard. Clear the screen. Do you smell popcorn? Of course you don't. What did you have for breakfast? Doesn't matter. Picture 1. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Reality position. Ideal self. Amazing feelings. Whiteboard. Picture 1. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Other one disappears, bottom left. Reality position. Ideal self. Feeling good. Whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, reality position, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, reality position, whiteboard. Wipe it out. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, reality, whiteboard. 1, 2, bottom right, swish, reality, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, 1, 2, swish, whiteboard. 1, 2, swish, whiteboard. And relax. Now, breathing deeply, open your eyes and come back to the room. And now let's have a look and see how this has gone. Have we sorted this out? Have we made this work well? Now, let's see if we can get rid of that negative trigger. I want you to bring back the negative trigger now. The negative trigger picture that you created, the image that's in your mind's eye. Bring that image back into your mind's eye. And when you do, does the automatic swish picture come over the top with picture number 2, making you feel empowered, making you feel like you've got this sorted, making you feel like your ideal self who somehow has magically sorted this, and you've got woven in there what your mind needed to be able to let this go, because there's some meaning that's needing to be let go here. And so in the chat box, what did you find this time? When you think of if you close your eyes now and think of that image of your negative trigger, what happens just before you get triggered? Does that picture swish? It's an amazing tool. It works really well with me in a variety of ways. It really works really well with my clients. It works really well to help you move forward. So well done. This is round number 2. And I reckon we need one more round, but let's do some calibration before we finish. Calibration, we'll do one more round in a second, but what is your number now? Think of your image, and I want you to give me the first number out of 10 as to how you feel about that negative trigger and how badly that's affecting your life now. So before, you might have had an 8s, coming down to sort of 5s. What's the number now on the second round of calibration? What is your score out of 10 as to how much this is a problem, this negative trigger? Based on how you're feeling when you fire off your trigger, your swish pattern. How did you go? And so we got in the chat box 8s, went to 5s, down to 3s. Mate, that is absolutely awesome. Fantastic, guys. That is so exciting. And so you're bringing down the emotional charge. And I think that's what I did for myself. I brought mine from an 8 down to like a 3. And I was okay with a 3. 3 is kind of normal. Maybe I didn't want to let the builder off the hook completely. And so I left a little bit in there just to protect myself a little bit. But it's not dominating my world. It's just, oh, well, it was just a thing. That's okay. Not a problem. And just to nail this home and to really build your ideal self, I think we should do at least one more round. And let's see if we can start to automate this so that when you think of the negative picture, overcomes the positive image. So let's give it one more crack and we'll have a go now. So everybody getting ready. We know what the drill is now. I want you to relax, sitting in your seat, breathe in deeply. Breathing in deeply. And now let's have a go at how we're feeling. Picture number 1, bring it up into the screen, closing your eyes, bring it to the screen of your mind's eye. Picture 1. That was that old trigger. And picture 2, bottom right, dark in the corner. That's your ideal self picture. And 3, 2, 1, swish over the top. The other one gets small and dark in the opposite corner. The swish is over the top and you're holding it in the reality position. The distance of reality, the size and shape of reality. In your mind's eye, that picture is the right position to feel real. And as you've got that in your mind's eye, just notice how good that feels. So satisfying to know that all of those negative triggers are gone. So incredibly empowering to know that you have solved this. So wonderful to know that you now have the skills inside you and the things you needed to let go of that old emotional trigger. And whiteboard. And so you're having those good feelings. And so we'll keep going. Bring back picture 1, closing your eyes. Picture 2, bottom right, eyes closed. And swish, say the word swish, and use your hands to move that picture big and bright. The more you get your body involved, the more your unconscious mind doesn't know if it's real or not. It thinks it's real, and that's what we want. Swishing that picture over the top, hold it into the reality position. You've got the size, the shape, the distance out from your eyes that you store a reality in. Hold it there for a moment. See what you see. Hear what you hear when you are totally your ideal self. Feel what you feel. That confidence. I can handle it. I got this. And think what you think in that state. Enjoy those feelings and whiteboard. So let's do it again, and I'll start to pick up the pace. I like to have a few moments to feel into it. Picture 1, closing your eyes and bring it into that image in front of you. Picture 2, bottom right, swish over the top, reality position. ideal self, feel the feelings, and whiteboard. Imagine the whiteboard, clearing the screen. Picture 1, bring it back. Picture 2, bottom right, swish over the top. Say the word swish as you do it. The other picture disappears, bottom left, small and dark. Reality position, ideal self, feeling good. Whiteboard. Now let's pick up the pace. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish over the top, reality position, feeling good, ideal self. Whiteboard, wipe it out. Picture 1, bring it back again. Picture 2, bottom left, swish, reality, feeling good, ideal self, and whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, reality position, feeling good, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, whiteboard. 1, 2, bottom left, bottom right, swish, whiteboard. 1, 2, swish, whiteboard. 1, 2, swish, whiteboard. And relax. How did you go, guys? I think that is enough swishing for one day. How do you feel? Now I want you to bring back, we'll test and calibrate one more time. How do you feel? Do you feel, I want you to bring back that picture again. Picture number 1. And if you can't bring it back, that is awesome. Next time you encounter that trigger, the ideal self will swish off, will fill your screen, will fill your body full of good feelings and be the antidote. When I now walk into the bathrooms in the different situations where I used to get triggered, I just feel neutral, which is I'm very happy about. That's what I want. And so put in the chat box anything you found as you went through that really unusual, fun activity. Put in the chat box what you felt. I'm empowered. Wow, it's firing off automatically. Wow, I've got it under control. I'm not having that weird emotional response. Amazing. I am fired up for you all. Great job, everyone. Well, I'm just so delighted you all joined me here today for the Swish pattern. So let me just go back to the final wrap up of the presentation. Been going an hour and 20, so done pretty well. And I'll just jump into my share screen again. And so what have we just done today? We've figured out a problem trigger image. We've put all the things that we needed to in there. We've created an ideal self. We've swished that over the top. We've felt all the good feelings. We then hit the whiteboard to wipe it out and start again and repeat by just neurologically reconnecting the system. And now we've got our scores and how we feel about the future triggering event. And we've got image 1, bringing it back, and what was the score. And in the chat box, you can see they've just been incredible results. So you've probably put in there things like empowered, calm, centered. Whatever you've put in is appropriate. And so it's always good just to write down the things you put into your Swish pattern. You've got the position of reality. You've got the things you put in there to counter it. And now you are starting to master your own system. So just to wrap up, the last thing to talk about is the beginning of the day. I promised an opportunity to do a complimentary roadmap session. That's that one-on-one Google Maps session I talked about, where you can find out what your position A is, what's going on for you right now that's holding you back. Find out what your purpose is. That's position B, where are you heading? And then the roadmap in between, hence is quite nicely linked to Fork in the Road coaching and Fork in the Road coaching. There's a link in the chat box, which I've just copied in. It's the Fork in Road coaching. It just directs straight to the messenger. And all you have to do, if you want to claim one of those, is just type in let's chat. You can see the words there down the bottom. Just put in let's chat and I'll get back to you and we'll arrange a time to catch up via Zoom during lockdown, no doubt. And I can show you what coaching does for you. And at the end of that session, if not for you, you don't want to do anything else, that's absolutely fine. I'm here just to network and meet people and show you what I can do. So it's absolutely no obligation to that at all. It's purely complimentary. And so any questions and answers, I've done pretty well to keep it under the time limits. It's an hour 23. Questions and answers, any questions that you have, and we can go through those. Here are my details. If you want to reach out, my email address is matt@forkinroad.com.au. You've got the Fork in Road website as well. And you've also got a video there from my anxiety series in Fork in the Road YouTube channel. And the messenger chat link is that one down the bottom, down there just underneath at the bottom there. Well, I hope you've had an amazing session. I hope this really helps someone during lockdown manage their negative emotional triggers. And I think that you are all amazing for showing up. Thank you so much for interacting. Thank you so much for having the trust to come along and interact with me today. I really appreciate it. And regardless as to what happens, as to whether we work together or not, I really hope you take this home and use it for yourself. Teach it to your kids, teach it to your partners, and really get to know your emotional triggers. There's deeper stuff, obviously, under the surface, but this is a great way to handle things, even if you've got all sorts of help and therapists and everything. You don't see them every week, every day. You might see them once a week if you're really going through some drama in life. So to get you through, this is a great technique. My goal is to give you all value that helps you get through, especially lockdown. And that's why I've started creating these resources, get off my bum and get out there and share with you what I do. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I have had a blast. I've loved the interaction in the chat box. I've loved the interaction with those of you who have had your screens on. And thank you so much for joining me for how to handle your emotional triggers and find balance. My name's Matt Tate. You can reach out to me on all those bits and pieces. Those of you who are in the emails via Eventbrite, I'll send you out an email. Those of you who would like me to reach out, please contact me via Facebook, forkintheroad.com.au or matt@forkinroad.com.au email address, and I can touch base with you guys and put you on the email list so you get the goodies that I give out. I'll be giving this recording out for those who are already on the mail list. Thanks so much. I'll stop it there, and thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate having some people to share this with. This is Matthew Tate signing out from Fork in the Road Coaching, and I'll see you next time.